I wanted to ask you about the Bridgewater State University child rape case. There was the defendant who pleaded guilty last week. I want to get your thoughts on that, but I also want to ask you, last year your office sought to dismiss a case filed by the parents seeking information. And I guess last week there's been some developments in court relative to that, and now you're going to be handing over information. I guess, why did you not seek to, appeal the judge's ruling in that case after, you initially fought to dismiss the case, saying that, what is your response to that?
Yeah, so first of all, I think what happened at Bridgewater State was terrible, and my heart goes out to the victims, to the families. It's hard to imagine sending your little loved one off in the morning, leaving him or her in the care of another person, and then having to realize what happened to them in the course of a day. And it was a terrible, terrible thing, a terrible, terrible act. And as I say, my heart goes out to those little kids, to their families. And what I want to see is in these kinds of situations, making sure that victims and families have support, and it's ongoing support. But our involvement with the state, we can go back and get you the specifics of it. I think that there was a public record request that went in through the family's lawyers on that to Bridgewater State. At some point, it was handled by the college. At some point, our office then got involved. And I'm a proponent of transparency and producing information. Obviously, there are certain rules around some of that. And you know from your work as reporters, if there are matters under investigation or that we're working on, there may be limits to what can be produced at any given time. But it sounds like we're going forward and producing information, so that's a good thing.
Yes, and soon a woman named Judith Rotacco, who is the former director of the daycare center, is set to be tried on April 18th for her alleged failure to report the abuse of the main defendant, Laughlin, who committed the rape and then pled guilty to it recently. So is your office going to represent Bridgewater State University if, in the case, the Rotacco trial proves that others in the university were informed about Laughlin's suspected behavior and never reported it as mandated under Title IX?
Let me get back to you on the specifics where we are in that matter, because I don't know the latest on it. I do know that there are civil litigations ongoing in addition to the criminal prosecution that just went forward and was resolved. There are ongoing civil litigations, and with all of that, it's a matter of facts and the law and in terms of who's held responsible for what. And so I'll let you know about that. We have worked, though, over the last year with Bridgewater State, their counsel, on this matter. But I want to be precise in terms of where we are with what's coming up in a few weeks.
The rapist, Kyle Laughlin, was sentenced to 7.5 years. Do you think that sentence is strong enough to make sure that other child rapists out there don't dare touch any children?
Well, I think that with all of these situations, you have the law, you have what the law provides in terms of a sentence for any applicable charge. It's my understanding here that the district attorney's office worked very closely with the family and made the recommendation that they viewed as justified under the facts, under the law, and taking into account the circumstances of victims and witnesses and the like. So I'm not here to judge the decisions made by a district attorney's office nor by a court in terms of what was decided in that matter. But I think everyone, all of us in law enforcement, take very seriously crimes against children. again, you're talking about a very vulnerable population, and I think that that's something we all have in mind as we go about our work, and the need to be aggressive and active, and when you hear of or catch wind of allegations, that you move quickly and you act, and I'm glad that this matter is now behind those victims and their families.
As far as the information that the parents are seeking, like I said, they went to court to try to seek it, and now it appears that there's a resolution, and through that court proceeding, the parents are going to be, the lawyers are going to be provided a year's worth of information, as far as I know. Do you know how many emails they're going to be providing the parents, and how will they be sorted, and how will private information be redacted?
Well, I think the good news is that information is being provided. I know when our office got involved, we worked to make sure that information was provided. How it's provided, I can't actually tell you because I haven't seen the emails myself, but I think whatever necessary measures need to be taken under the law to protect somebody's privacy, for example, if there's financial information, we'll redact if there's like social security numbers and personal financial information or the like. Sometimes health information is subject to protection. I can't tell you what the specifics are and the contents, but good news is those documents and information is going to be turned over and provided.
Do you know how much that process will cost and who's paying for it?
No, I don't. But it's, I think on this one, I think we should just get back with you about sort of the specifics of it all. Happy to. I mean, as I say, this matter came in at some point to my office because we don't always get involved with litigations at the start when they involve state agencies. It may happen down the line, and I know when this came to our office, I was clear that I wanted information produced, and I wanted transparency in the process. It looks like that's working. Go forward.
Well, why did your office seek to dismiss the case brought by the parents seeking the information through that?
I'll go back and refresh about that. There was a good reason why we took the actions that we did. A lot of times it's not sometimes about the specifics of a matter. It's about certain principles of the law that we actually need to maintain and uphold. But I'm somebody who's always going to push for transparency and the production of information. It's just sometimes I actually have to follow the law, and sometimes that doesn't please everybody. But we do the best we can with it. But I want to make sure, Mark, that you have sort of the latest and greatest in terms of what's happening there. If you want to circle back with Robin,
sure.
Just and anything else you have on that.
If I could ask you about a different topic.
Sure.
There was a controversy last week where State Representative Michelle Dubois, Democrat from Brockton, she had alerted people through Facebook of what she said was an impending ICE raid the following day. She later said it was based on rumors, but afterward, the Bristol County Sheriff, Thomas Hodgson, claimed that she's violating the law and she could potentially go to jail for a maximum of 5 years. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think that over the last couple of months in particular, there has been a lot of talk about immigration. I can't remember the exact date when the president proposed his first travel ban, but that really led to a lot of discussion, a lot of commentary, a lot of statements, and frankly a lot of fear and anxiety across a lot of communities here in Massachusetts and around the country on this issue. A lot of questions for law enforcement, and this has been a topic of major discussion. So a lot of people have made statements. You just mentioned a couple of those. From where I sit right now, I'll tell you that a couple things are really important to me in my office. We've worked very hard in law enforcement to build trust with the communities that we serve, and that includes immigrant communities. And one of the great concerns I have about where President Trump is going on some of this is that he's not doing it in a way that's very mindful of public safety. What do I mean by that? We've got ongoing investigations and cases where we need the cooperation of witnesses, we need victims cooperating, we need that kind of exchange of information. And if you create a situation where people are either afraid to come forward and report crimes, they may be crimes against children, they may be crimes of domestic violence, or they may be related to human trafficking, drug trafficking, gun. We don't need people driven underground and afraid to come forward and cooperate with law enforcement in the way we want them to. So that's the first thing, that some of this has had the direct and opposite effect of fraying some of those communications and ties with law enforcement and actually undermining public safety. Now, it is and has been the case, at least here in Massachusetts, that I see in talking to local departments and officials and chiefs and sheriffs that we share an interest in making sure that those who are a danger to their community, those who have committed crimes and are not here lawfully, are held accountable. We regularly respond to ICE detainers and work and in cooperation with and in communication with federal authorities on these issues. And I think if we had been asked before this went out, we would have told the President and the Attorney General just that. But unfortunately, we've got a situation where a lot of fear, anxiety, needless fear, anxiety, and confusion was created, led to a lot of public statements, a lot of pronouncements out there. And I think it's important that we continue to do our job in law enforcement. I'd like to have more support, frankly, from the federal authorities for some of the work that we're trying to do, particularly as it relates to the opioid crisis and drug trafficking enforcement. But that we work to support our immigrant communities here who have made tremendous contributions. I just think about this area alone. You know, I went to the Azores 2 years ago now, right? It's like I finally saw like the door and understood why the streets have the cobblestone the way they do, you know? I was like, oh, it was there first. Okay, so I get it. So, you know, and that's just one example. You think about the rich history of immigrant communities here in the South Coast and southeastern Massachusetts, but across the state. And sadly to me, I see any number of immigrant communities right now, immigrants scared and afraid. You know, anecdotally, we started to get reports that people were afraid to send their kids to school or afraid to take their kids to a community health center or the doctors. That's not good, right? That's not good for the health and well-being of young kids or our communities. We actually sent out guidance to schools just reminding them that you know, all kids who are here, they're entitled to a public education. And schools have been very good and responsive about, you know, getting that message out. But that just shows you some of the real fear. I mean, I've had people from hospitals and community health centers talk to me about patients being afraid to come in and how concerned they are as healthcare providers that people are actually avoiding care right now. And that's not good either. But that's unfortunately some of the environment that has been created in the last 3 months. So we're going to continue to do the work we can out of the Attorney General's office and try to bring about a calm as I say, continue with the work that we need to do.
What about alerting the public about impending immigration enforcement operations? Do you see that as a legal thing or as an illegal thing?
Just speaking in broad terms?
Yes.
I mean, that was not, I disagree with the sheriff's statement. People are entitled to First Amendment protection. You all know that better than anybody. So I think that what it does show, though, is the degree to which this is on people's mind, the degree to which people are registering this. This is an issue. This is something that our communities and community members are feeling or experiencing. And you see, there are two different statements, two different examples, but you see people, elected officials, commenting and speaking to this issue. So I just speak for myself, and I just told you where I am on this issue, that unfortunately there's been an unnecessary denigration of immigrants and immigrant communities. And I think about the work of immigrants and immigrant communities, particularly in this area, but across the state, and that saddens me. And I think about kids who are afraid, and that saddens me. And I think about the actual real life work that goes on in law enforcement, the coordination between state and local and federal officials day to day on a range of issues. And I'd like to see more focus and attention on how we can support those efforts and leverage